Let's start with 2 to the 4th. What'd you guys get for that? 16, yep. And then 2 to the 3rd? 8. 2 squared? 4. 2 to the 1st power? 2. Okay, let's pause there. So if we just look at the pattern right now, as we work our way down, what are we doing? Yeah, so divided by 2, doing half. So if we continue that pattern, what's 2 divided by 2? 1, yep. And then 1 divided by 2, let's just keep it as a fraction, so it'd be 1/2. And then what would the last one be? What would it be? 1/4, yep. Okay. On this other side, what's 10 to the 4th power? Mm-mm. 10,000, yep. What about 10 to the 3rd power? 1,000. 10 squared? 100. 10 to the 1st power? 10. So the same thing as we're working our way down, what are we doing? Divide by 10. So what's 10 divided by 10? 1. And then you'd have 1 over 10. And then 1 over what? I can't hear. 1 over what? 100, yeah. Okay, so now if we go through to fill these out, anything to the power of 0 is what? So what did we get for the 0 power? 1. And then negative exponent is the blank of a positive exponent. Almost, yes. Yes, what's the vocab word that we use for that? Like the flipped. Say it louder. Reciprocal, yep. Okay. So this whole unit, like the first half at least, is all about like exponent rules and how to simplify things with the rules. And this is like, I will warn you, it's like a slap in the face after winter break. It's not an easy unit, okay? So today we're just focusing on 0 exponents and negative exponents. So your objective is students will be able to simplify expressions involving 0 and negative exponents. All right, so like we just kind of set up there, the 0 exponent rule is that anything to the power of 0 is going to always be 1. And then if you have a negative exponent, all you're going to do is you're going to do the reciprocal, so typically put a 1 above it, and then the exponent's going to become positive. So think about it as like if you have a negative exponent in the numerator, it's going to move to the denominator. If you have a negative exponent in the denominator, it's going to move to the numerator. Okay, to get positives. And you should only ever be putting positive exponents into your calculator, never negative ones, because we're going to make it not negative before we do it, okay? So on these ones, we have 9 to the negative 2nd power. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the reciprocal of that. So put a 1 above it. And then the exponent's going to become a positive 2 when you do that, okay? And then from there, you can figure out what the exponent part is. So what's 9 squared? Yep, so it's going to be 1 over 81. We're going to add like another example onto this. So we are going to also do this. So the same thing, but without parentheses. So this is kind of weird, and you might not fully grasp why, and that's okay. It's just one of those like math things that you just have to just kind of know. So what is anything to the 0 power? 1. So in this case, that whole negative 3.6 is grouped together as a unit, so all of that's to the 0 power. So the answer to this one's going to be 1. However, this one, the negative is not grouped with the 3.6 with parentheses. So this one is actually going to be negative 1 because it's basically saying negative whatever 3.6 to the 0 power is. Okay, so just kind of remember, if you have parentheses around the whole negative, then it's still going to be a 1. But if it doesn't have parentheses, then that negative is going to have to be tacked on to the answer. Okay? I know it's weird. If you put it in the calculator, both of those, that's what you get to. Okay? All right, and then try the next ones. Okay. So for this first one, 4 to the negative 3rd power, you should do the reciprocal, so 1 over 4 to the positive 3rd power. And then what's 4 to the positive 3rd power? 64, you have to get 1 over 64 for that. Okay, and then on B, we have negative 5 in parentheses, so the whole thing is to the 0 power, so what's the answer to that one going to be? 1, yep. Okay, on C, same kind of deal as A, so you would do 1 over 3 to the positive 2 power, and then what's 3 squared? 9, so 1 over 9. Then on the next one, same thing, so it's going to be a positive 1. What's 6 to the 1st power? Yep, just 6. And then E is a little bit weird. It just looks way more complicated. So whenever you're doing the reciprocal for the exponent, the only thing that changes is the exponent. So when you flip this, the negative 4 will still be in parentheses, and all that's going to do is change to a positive 2. Okay? And then we're going to kind of do a little sidebar here. Negative 4 in parentheses squared versus negative 4 not in parentheses squared. Looking at those two. So does everyone have a calculator? If you don't, will you grab one? Okay, so I want you to type both of these into your calculator, one with parentheses and one without, and see what you get. Okay, so what do you get when you have parentheses around it? 16 versus what? Negative 16. Yeah. So same kind of idea as with the 0 power one that we did. If you don't have the parentheses including the negative in the exponent, then it's not included. So just the 4 has the exponent technically, and the negative is just like tacked on at the end. Okay. So then on the bottom here, you'd have a positive 16, so this would be 1 over 16. Okay. Good. Any questions? Okay. I'll give you guys a second, and then I'm going to change it. Okay. All right, so these next ones now, we're going to add in variables. So the trick here is that you want to really focus on what specifically has each exponent. So all of these have to be viewed as separate pieces. Like the 5 has its own exponent, the A has its own exponent, and the B has its own exponent. If it doesn't have an exponent, the exponent's 1. Okay? So on A, what piece specifically has something that we can simplify? Just B, right? So that's going to need to do the reciprocal. I'm going to show you the long work, and then I'll tell you how to just like get there without doing it. So technically we would do the reciprocal of that. So it'd be 5a to the 3rd times 1 over b to the positive 2 power. If I just flip the b part. Okay, so then when I multiply straight across, what is 5a to the 3rd times 1? 5a to the 3rd, and then it's 1 times b squared. One times b squared? Yep, just still b squared. So instead of doing all of that and doing the reciprocal separately, we just think about it kind of as like this is going to move to the bottom of this fraction. And if you already have other stuff there, that's just going to stay up top instead of putting a 1 up top. Okay? And then the opposite is also true. So if you have a negative exponent in the denominator, where do you think it's going to go? The top, yep. So that's going to move to the top now to become positive. So you'd have like 1x to the positive 5th. You don't have anything left on the bottom. You just have 1. So what's just like the easiest way to write this without all the extra stuff? Even simpler. Yep, just x to the power 5. Yep, so both of those ones are just unnecessary. You don't need to write them. Okay? Okay, go ahead and do the next ones. So remember, only move the pieces that have negative exponents. If it doesn't, then it has to stay where it's at. Okay? Okay, so for A, we just need to move that negative exponent to the bottom. So you should just have 1 over x to the positive 9th. All right, on B, where am I going to move the n to the negative 3? To the top, yep. So you should just basically get n to the positive 3rd. No, just because like a 1 in front of it is the same as, yeah. If it was a different number, then yeah, you'd have to keep it. All right, on C, what specifically has a negative exponent? Just C, yep. So just that piece is going to move to the bottom. So what's going to stay on top? 4B. And on the bottom now, we're going to have the C, but to the positive 3rd. All right, and then on D, where is this A going to go? The top. Am I going to move the 2 to the bottom? No, because the 2 doesn't have a negative exponent, okay? So keep the 2 up top. The A to the 3rd is just going to go up top with it. And since I don't have anything left on the bottom, it would just be 1. We just don't need to put anything. Okay, what's going to move on E? N. That's going to move to the bottom. So on this one, the 1 on top is important because, like, think about it as, like, 2 and 2 over 1 are the same thing, but, like, 1/2 is different. Like, you have to have the 1 up top, okay? So you're going to keep the 1 up top, and then m squared, n to the 5th. I just put it as like a placeholder. So there's always like an invisible 1 in front of everything. But just since there's nothing left up there and you have to put something in the numerator because it's a fraction, you just put a 1. Okay, so the next ones, you are given unsimplified expressions, and it's going to give you stuff to plug in for the variables. You have a couple of options. You could plug the numbers in right away, and then try to go and get to the end, or you can simplify it first and then plug the numbers in, which is what I like to do. Just because once you plug the numbers in for the letters, then it's just like a bunch of numbers everywhere, and like visually it can be confusing to figure out what to do next. Whereas here the variables kind of help break it up a little bit to simplify it at first. Okay, so we have 3s to the third t to the negative second. So what can be simplified there? So what p specifically is going to move? T. Yep, so we're going to move the t to the bottom. So we're going to have 3s to the third, and the t to the positive 2 is now going to be on the bottom. So that's simplifying it. Okay, then we're going to go through and plug in the numbers. So we have so it says that s is 2 and t is negative 3. And then as far as order of operations goes, you should always be doing the exponents before you multiply, okay? So here, what is 2 to the third power? And then negative 3 in parentheses squared is what? 9, yep. So anytime that you're plugging in numbers for the variables, you're going to use parentheses, okay? Okay, and then 3 times 8, 24 over 9, and then that can be reduced to what? So what are both of those divisible by? 3. So then if I divide them both by 3, what do I get? Yeah, 8/3. Okay, and then go and try the next ones. So try to simplify them all first. Get rid of all the negative exponents, get rid of all the 0 exponents, and then plug in what you have. Guys, make sure we're off our phones and actually doing these problems, please. Okay, so for this first one, where is the n going to move to? The n? Where's that going to go? Yep, underneath. So you have w to the 0 power over n to the 4th. And then what's anything to the power of 0? 1. So we have 1 over n to the 4th. Simplified. And then when we plug in what n is, which is negative 2, in parentheses, what's negative 2 to the 4th power? In parentheses, though. That's without parentheses. 16. So 1 over 16 is your answer. All right, what is going to move on B? N, yep. So you have 1 over n w to the 2nd. You can do n to the 1st if you want to, but you just don't need it. And then the order doesn't really matter. Typically, you go alphabetically, is how it's written. Okay, and then let's plug that in. N is negative 2. W is 5. Okay, so what's 5 squared? 25. And then negative 2 times 25? Negative 50. Yep.
I did it like different, but I got the same answer. Like I did W2 and
That's all. Yeah, you go. Okay, what can I simplify on C? Yep, turn to 1 up top. So you're going to have 1 over w to the 6th when you simplify. And plug in what w is, which is 5. So it's 5 to the 6th power. Yep. Okay, so that's my answer for that one.
How'd you get 1?
Just because of n to the 0 power. Yeah, anything to the 0 power. All right, and then what's going to move on D? The W. So you're going to have W over N, basically. You don't have to put the W to the first. And plug in what we got. Okay, 5 over negative 2, that's can't really be simplified, just make negative 5 halves for that one. Try to keep it in fraction form because we're going to need fractions for certain things versus decimals. Okay? Okay, good. Okay. All right, a population of marine bacteria doubles every hour under controlled laboratory conditions. The number of bacteria is modeled by the expression 1,000 times 2 to the h power, where h is the number of hours after a scientist measures the population size. Evaluate the expression for h equals 0 and h equals negative 3. What does each value of the expression represent in the situation? Okay, so we have 1,000 times 2 to the h power, and what h value do they want us to do first? Anybody? Yep, to 0. Yeah, so it stands like 2 separate problems. Yeah. So we're going to plug in 0 for the exponent. 1,000 times 2 to the 0 power. What is 2 to the 0 power? So we're just going to get 1,000. And it asks us what that means in like the context of our problem. So 1,000 what? Yep. So the population size is 1,000 bacteria, right? And then we just have to figure out when. So it says here that H is the number of hours after a scientist measures the population size. So number of hours after it's measured, basically. So if H is 0, what's that mean? 0 hours after it's measured, right? What's a way to say that doesn't sound weird? Like I would never say like 0 hours after it was measured. What would I say instead? Yeah, so basically it's 1,000 bacteria when it's measured. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing, but for h equals negative 3. Wow, 2, I mean, not h. 2. 2 to the negative 3. Okay. So that negative exponent needs to be simplified, so it's going to go where? Below. So we're going to have 1,000 over 2 to the positive third. What's 2 to the third? 8, and then divide those. Okay, so it's going to be 125 bacteria. So if H is negative 3, how would I phrase that? What would that be? So that would be if it's a positive 3. So 3 hours after it's measured would be positive 3. This was a negative 3. 3 hours before. Yep. So 125 bacteria, 3 hours before it is measured. Okay, and then go ahead and try that last one. Okay, so for this one, we have 5,400 times 3 to the W. So the first W is negative 2. So when I put that underneath, to be positive, it'd be 3 squared. So either way, what do you get when you simplify this whole thing? Yeah. Just 600, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so here, whenever you put that underneath, so to become 3 squared, it'll go underneath that. So then you'll divide 5,400 by the 9. Does that make sense? Okay. So you should get 600. So that's going to be 600 what? Insects? 600 insects when? To what? Yep, 2 weeks before. I was going to leave it like that. And then the next one is 0. 5,400 times 3 to the power of 0. What do you guys get for that? Yep, so just 5,400, because that's basically just times 1. So 5,400 insects when it was measured. And the last one is 1. 5,400 times 3 to the first power. So what do you guys get for that? Hmm? 1,800, yeah. So 1,800 insects win. 1 week after. Okay, I think we're just going to skip the lesson check because we don't really have time. Yeah. Okay, cool.